Hello everyone, welcome to another time-lapse sketching tutorial, and today we are going to sketch this mansion with pen and ink. And this is the reference photo of the mansion, which you can download from the link in the video description below. By the way, this video is the condensed version of the full-length tutorial I have created for my patrons. So if you want to watch the full 46-minute tutorial, consider supporting me on Patreon. The first thing I would do for this particular scene is to measure the dimensions. So I want to make sure I can fit the whole building. So I need to make sure I can fit the width of the building on the page. So right now I'm measuring the width, and I also want to find out where the midpoint is to get me some point of reference. So the midpoint or the midline is somewhere around there, and this building is almost rectangular if we are thinking about the proportion. Since this building has so much details, I will want to create some drafting lines and a composition with my pencil first, and I will identify any mistakes with the proportion, with the alignment, with measurements, with the angles during the penciling stage. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to divide the building into different sections according to the width. I'm actually using the pillars to divide the different width to make sure that the proportion for all the different widths are accurate. And I'm also measuring the height, making sure that the height is relative to the width of the building. Now for the angled lines, you can draw them to the vanishing point. So there aren't many angled lines for this particular building, but those angled lines are still important because they will create the illusion of perspective. So at the start of the sketch, I have already identified where the vanishing point is, and it's somewhere below the window on the left side. So as I draw, you can see me sometimes use this hand movement that points the diagonal line to the vanishing point. That's because I want to make sure the diagonal lines actually go to the vanishing point. Now with the vanishing point on the page, you can draw the diagonal lines more accurately rather than rely on observation techniques to measure the angle. So as you can see, once you block out the different sections of the building, the width, you can start filling in the windows. You can divide the building into the upper story and the lower story, and then divide the different floors into smaller and smaller sections. Use the windows as a measuring tool, like how tall, how high is the first ground floor relative to one window. Is it the height of 2 windows, 2.5 windows, or 3 windows? Once I'm happy with the proportion and the composition that I have created using the pencil, I can start inking. And while inking, it's still important to check the proportion and check the angles of the line. Make sure the width are proportional to what you have already drawn. Now for the lines that contribute to the form, for the lines that actually signify a change in the plane or a change in the direction of the wall, those lines will be drawn with thicker strokes, with a thicker stroke. For lines that do not contribute to the form of the building, for example, the decorations, some of the details above the windows, or even the window itself, because the window is flat against the wall, the window does not change the direction of the wall. I would draw the windows and those details with thinner lines. But if the window cuts into the wall, then you may actually draw the frame or the outline of the window with darker lines. But for the window frame or the curtains, you should draw them with thinner lines. And also, if you have consistent line width throughout the sketch can look a bit monotonous. It's not going to look as interesting compared to a sketch with thin and thick lines. For the background, for the trees on the right side and also for the building on the left side in the background, I will draw them with thinner lines. Now this fountain pen that I'm using is a Sailor fountain pen with a full-day nib. So a full-day nib is a bent nib, and I can hold the pen at an angle to draw broader strokes and hold the pen more vertically to draw the extra thin lines. So as I'm drawing the windows right now, I'm trying to align the window at the top and bottom so that they are aligned vertically. I also need to align the top of the windows on each floor horizontally. So make sure you get the alignment accurate. Windows on different floors should be aligned vertically. Windows on the same floor should be aligned horizontally. Now I'm not going to be painting this sketch, so I'm just using ink to mark out or to block out certain darker areas. I'm using the broad stroke to mark out darker areas. I am not painting this sketch with watercolor because the watercolor paper in this sketchbook sucks. The quality of the watercolor paper sucks. So I'm just using this sketchbook now just for pen and ink sketches. So here you can see me blocking in the darker areas with the pen, with the broad side of the pen nib, just to create contrast. If the sketch is just created with line art without any big dark shapes, it's going to look quite flat. So it's good to create some visual interest by, for example, varying the line width. You can also create visual interest by having light against dark, or by having an area with detail beside an area without detail. You can contrast items that are big and small. So a lot of things that you can create may come down to artistic preference. So you can use your artistic license to add or remove certain details just to create the extra contrast that you may want or need in a sketch. So you don't actually need to follow the scene like exactly. Sometimes you can use your artistic license to change things up just to make sure that the sketch looks good. So at this stage, the sketch is almost complete. Now this mansion has the yellow and white horizontal stripe that goes across, but if you look at my sketch, you can see that there is no horizontal stripes. So I would just want to add those horizontal stripes with very thin lines just to give the impression that there is some sort of detailing that goes across the building. This building may be more challenging to draw on location because this would involve you standing and sketching. So if you're holding a big sketchbook, well, it's going to be quite tedious because a big sketchbook is going to be heavy. And also because there is a wall in front of the building, you can't sit down and sketch. I mean, if you sit down and sketch, the wall may block the first or the ground floor, so you may not see much of the ground floor. Even though the reference photo did not show much of the wall, I still wanted to draw the wall and also show the bottom of the wall. So with the car and the wall and the building behind, we have this foreground and background thing going on, which creates depth. So it makes the sketch look more dimensional. Alright, I hope this tutorial is useful. Thanks for watching. See you guys again. Bye.